The cage in the corner, the old building stood in silence. Wind passed through broken windows. The sky above was gray. This place once held hundreds of cages. Now, it was forgotten. Dust covered everything. Bones, trash, metal parts, and memories. No one came here anymore, no one except him. Reed stepped carefully, his boots crushed bones as he walked. He wore a simple jacket, gloves, and a worn backpack. He was a scavenger. He came to find parts, tools, anything he could sell. His flashlight moved across the walls. There were faded marks, numbers, names in a language he didn't know. Some cages were open, others were broken. All were empty. At least that's what he thought. Then he heard it. A sound. Very soft. A sob. He stopped. His heart beat fast. Was it wind? A machine? No. It was a voice. A cry. Weak. Broken. Like someone who had cried for days and no one answered. He turned his flashlight to follow the sound. There, in the far corner, behind fallen beams and a broken panel, was a tiny cage. And inside it, someone was alive. Reed dropped his bag and ran forward. The cage was barely big enough for a child. The metal was old, but still strong, bent, rusty. The girl inside was curled up like a ball. She wasn't moving. Her skin was pale, dry, and full of cuts. She had no clothes, just old rags that looked like they'd been part of a blanket long ago. Her eyes opened slowly. She saw him. Her body tensed. She tried to press herself into the corner of the cage. Reed knelt. "Hey. It's okay. I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't reply. She just stared. Tears ran down her face. Silent. Slow. Like she had no more strength left to cry loudly. Reed looked at the lock. It was alien tech. But simple. He pulled out his tools. "Let me get you out of here." The girl flinched. She tried to cover herself with her thin arms. She shook her head. "It's okay," he said again. "You're safe now." As he worked, she whispered something. Her voice was so soft he could barely hear it. Rhea. Rhea. He didn't know if that was her name or someone else's, but it was the only word she said. After a few minutes, the lock popped open. Reed slowly opened the cage door. The girl didn't move. "Come on," he said gently. "You're free now." She looked at the open door, then at him. She didn't believe it. Her body shook with fear. Reed took off his jacket and placed it inside the cage. "Here, cover yourself." Still, she didn't move. So he looked away. Turned his back. "I won't look, I promise." He waited. After a moment, he heard her crawl forward, the sound of the jacket dragging. Then the soft creak of the cage as she stepped out. She stood behind him, barely standing. Her legs wobbled, like she hadn't walked in days. Maybe longer. Reed turned slowly. The jacket covered her now. Her eyes still had fear. But also confusion. Why was this stranger helping her? "Can you walk?" he asked. She didn't answer, but took one small step. Then another. Reed moved slowly, letting her follow. He picked up his bag and flashlight. "Let's get out of here." They moved through the dark hallway. She kept close to the wall away from him. Her feet were bare. Each step made her wince in pain. As they reached the entrance, Reed stopped. Something felt wrong. He looked back. In the dust near the cage were fresh footprints, not his, not hers. Someone else had been there. Watching. She flinched when he reached. Out Reed kept walking, but his thoughts stayed behind. Those fresh footprints in the dust, someone had been near the cage. Recently. Too recently. They weren't his. They weren't hers. Which meant someone was watching. He looked at the alien girl behind him. She walked slowly, one shaky step at a time. The jacket he gave her hung loose around her small body. She didn't speak. She didn't even look up. Reed stopped near the exit of the ruined building. Wait here, he said gently. She didn't respond. She just froze, like she thought he'd leave her behind. Her lip trembled. Reed put his hand up in peace. Just checking outside, I promise. He stepped into the open. The sky was still gray, the wind sharp. The land around was dead. Rocks, broken machines, a few burned ships. He scanned the area carefully. Nothing moved. No sound. But that didn't mean no danger. He returned to her. She hadn't moved. She stared at him with wide, scared eyes. Hey, he said softly. We're okay. Let's get you to the ship. He reached out a hand. Slowly. Kindly. But the moment his fingers got close to her shoulder, she flinched. Hard. She backed into the wall like he'd hit her, though he hadn't touched her at all. Her eyes filled with terror. She dropped to her knees and covered her head. Reed froze. I'm sorry, he whispered, stepping back. I'm not like them. I won't hurt you. The girl shook, tears rolling down her cheeks. Reed didn't know what they'd done to her, but one thing was clear. She didn't trust any touch, not even a kind one. He knelt far enough to not scare her and gently set down a bottle of water. For you. Just drink. She didn't move. He opened it. Placed. It closed, then stepped back again. She finally crawled toward it like a frightened animal. Her hands trembled as she drank. Her throat was so dry the first sip made her cough. He waited, then spoke. My name is Reed. What's your name? No answer. He pointed to himself. Reed. Then to her. You? She blinked, then looked away. She couldn't or wouldn't speak. Reed stood and gave her space. Let's go, you'll be warm, safe. He turned and walked slowly toward the path down the hill. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He heard her footsteps behind him. Back at his small ship, he opened the side hatch. The girl stood at the door, unsure. She stared at the metal floor, the blinking lights inside, the warm steam rising from the vent. Reed nodded. It's okay. You can come in. She stepped inside slowly. The heat made her shiver. Her feet touched the soft mat and her knees almost gave out. She hadn't walked this much in a long time. Reed gave her a blanket and pointed to a bed in the corner. You can rest here. She crawled up onto the soft surface like she didn't believe it was real. Then she curled into a ball and pulled the blanket tightly around her. Reed turned away and prepared food. Nothing fancy, just warm soup. He placed it beside the bed and left her alone. For a while, she didn't touch it. Then, slowly, she ate. Bit by bit. Quiet. Watching him the whole time. As night came, the ship's lights dimmed. Reed sat in the pilot seat, looking at the stars outside. He heard a whisper. He turned. The girl was awake, still under the blanket, staring at him. Rhea, she said softly. Reed blinked. Rhea? She didn't answer. Her eyes closed again. But for the first time, she said something. A name? Her name? Or someone she lost? Reed didn't know, but he did know one thing. She wasn't just broken. She was hunted, and he had a bad feeling the ones who left her in that cage weren't done yet. The trap wasn't for her. It was for him. Reed woke up to the sound of a click. Not loud, just enough. He didn't move. He listened. Another soft sound, whir, like gears shifting inside the wall. He sat up in the pilot seat, still half asleep, and checked the ship's console. No alerts, no warning signs. But something was wrong. He turned. The girl was asleep, curled tight under the blanket. She hadn't moved, but something in the air felt off. Too quiet. Reed stood, grabbed his scanner, and walked to the cargo hatch. He opened the door slowly. Nothing. But when he scanned the outer wall, an energy spike. Faint. Hidden. not natural. He checked again. The signal was near the rear panel of his ship. Low frequency. Artificial. He stepped outside. The sky was still, dark. Wind blew across the dust and rocks. He crouched near the hull. That's when he saw it, a black device. Small, stuck between two pipes. He reached out and stopped. It was warm. Too warm. It was active. Reed's eyes widened. This wasn't an old tracker, it was a beacon. Someone had tagged his ship. Someone knew he took the girl, and they were coming. He rushed back inside and slammed the hatch shut. His boots echoed through the small space. The girl sat up, frightened. She pulled the blanket tighter. Reed didn't speak. He pulled a crate forward and opened a hidden panel inside. There it was, an old pulse scrambler. He slapped it against the beacon signal. The scrambler lit up. Jamming active. He let out a breath. That would buy time. Then he turned. To the girl, we need to move. She stared at him, confused, afraid. Someone tagged the ship. They're coming for you, he said. Or maybe me. Still, she said nothing. But this time, she didn't resist when he lifted her gently into the second seat. She clutched the blanket and looked out the window. Reed powered up the ship. The engine rumbled. As they lifted off the ground, she looked down at the place where he found her. The ruins, the cage, the darkness. Then she turned away. They flew for an hour in silence. Reed changed course 3 times, trying to lose any signal. The stars blinked across the black sky. Then, beep, the scanner flared red. A ship. Not far. And gaining. Reed stared at the radar. That's not a cargo ship. Too fast, too sharp. The girl looked at the screen, then at him. She was breathing fast. Hands shaking. He reached over to calm her, but stopped himself. I won't touch you, he said. But I'll protect you. She nodded. Just once. The enemy ship got closer. Reed narrowed his eyes. Okay then. Time to find out who's so interested in a broken little girl locked in a forgotten cage. He hit the communicator. Unknown ship, you're entering my flight path. State your business. Static. Then a voice. Low. Cold. Return the property. No one else has to get hurt. Reed's face went pale. Property? They meant her. He turned off the comms and looked at the girl. She was frozen. Terrified. Like she knew that voice. Maybe from a memory. Maybe from a nightmare. Reed switched course again and dove into a narrow canyon on a nearby moon. He hugged the walls, flying low, fast. The enemy ship followed. They fired. Reed swerved. The girl screamed. Hold on, he shouted. Metal scraped as he forced the ship into a tight turn. Lasers missed by inches. He had one chance. There was an old mining tunnel ahead. Dark, cramped. He flew straight into it. Inside the tunnel, everything shook. The lights flickered. Dust filled the air. The girl was crying, hands over her ears. Reed kept, one hand on the controls, the other on the emergency booster. At the end of the tunnel, light. He hit the booster. The ship shot forward. Behind them, the tunnel collapsed, trapping the other ship inside. Silence returned. They floated above a quiet, desert moon now. Reed looked at the girl. She was still crying, but softer. Not from fear anymore, from something else. Relief, or maybe the shock of still being alive. Reed reached into the supply bin and handed her a soft cloth. For your tears. She took it with shaking fingers. This time, she didn't flinch, just whispered one word. Thank you. She couldn't speak, but her wounds told everything. The ship drifted quietly over the desert moon. No alarms, no enemies on radar. Just the soft hum of the engine and the girl's steady breathing. Reed didn't speak. He didn't want to scare her. He just watched her from the corner of his eye. She was wrapped in a clean blanket now, the same one she'd clung to since he found her. Her big alien eyes followed everything. The blinking lights, the way his hands moved, the small rations he prepared. But still, She said nothing. No name, no past, no questions. Reed knew she was still afraid, not of what was outside, but of what she remembered. He landed the ship on a quiet cliff near a small outpost. No cameras, no people, just a sealed shelter he used sometimes, far from cities, far from trouble. Inside the shelter, it was warm, safe. He pointed to the small bath chamber. "You can clean up here, I'll wait outside." She looked at the door, then at him. Her hands trembled. "You don't have to be afraid," he said. "No one will hurt you here." He left her alone. She didn't enter right away, but after a minute he heard water running and a small, soft sob. Reed sat outside fixing a broken sensor. He tried not to think about what he'd seen. The bruises on her arms, the cuts behind her neck, the old scars around her ankles, as if someone had chained her there for days. She was barely alive when he found her. Now she was starting to look like a person again, but her eyes still held too much pain. When she finally stepped out, she looked cleaner, but fragile. Her skin was strange, pale silver, smooth, and marked with faint glowing lines like veins. She wore simple clothes Reed had laid out. They were too big, but they covered her. She held the blanket close like a shield. He gave her space. No questions, no pressure, just soup, warm, fresh. She stared at it, then, slowly, ate. Her hands were shaky. She couldn't hold the spoon steady. Reed pretended not to notice. After dinner, he set a med kit near her. "I have to clean your wounds," he said, "if that's okay." She hesitated, then gave a tiny nod. She sat on a crate, silent, still. Reed knelt beside her and gently removed the bandage from her ankle, and then he saw it. Not just scars, numbers burned into her skin, alien script, a brand. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was labeled, product like cargo. He swallowed hard. "Who did this to you?" No answer. Her eyes welled up. She tried to speak, but nothing came out, only air. Reed realized she wasn't mute. Her voice had been damaged. She reached toward the med kit and pulled out a small screen from inside. Her hands moved slowly. She tapped symbols, drew a shape, an image appeared, a cage, then another, a man with no face, covered in metal, holding a whip, then another, other children, all crying, all gone. Reed stared at the screen. The girl was showing him the truth. She wasn't the only one. There were others. She was the only one left, or the only one who escaped. Maybe the only one who survived. Reed's heart ached. He looked at her. "You're safe now," he whispered. She stared at him. Her lips trembled. Then she reached out and touched his hand, not flinching, not afraid, just soft, like she wanted to say, "Thank you," but couldn't. That night she couldn't sleep. She curled into the blanket but kept her eyes on the door. Every sound made her twitch. Reed sat nearby, pretending to rest. But he watched, protected, listened. In the dark, her voice finally came, broken, cracked, just one word, barely a whisper. "Kay? Lie." Reed opened his eyes. "Kaylee?" he asked. She nodded. That was her name. Her real name. Not property. Not cargo. Kaylee. And just like that, she wasn't just a girl in a cage anymore. She was someone. The signal they left in her body. Reed sat at the edge of the bed watching Kaylee sleep. She looked peaceful now, at least more than before. Her tiny hands clutched the blanket like it was her last safety in the galaxy. A warm lamp above her gave off soft orange light. Her silver skin shimmered under it. The scars were still there, but healing. Reed rubbed his face and sighed. He didn't just rescue her. He got involved in something bigger, something dangerous. The next morning, he powered up his medical scanner. He didn't want to wake her, but he had to be sure. She had been through too much. She deserved answers, even if she couldn't ask for them. He gently rolled up the blanket and placed the scanner over the base of her neck. Beep. Unusual signal detected. Reed frowned. He scanned again. The signal was inside her body. It wasn't natural. It wasn't a wound. It was a device. Small, deep, hidden under tissue. A tracker. His breath caught. They tagged her. He quickly jammed the signal again, but that wasn't enough. If someone was still listening, they knew where she had been. Maybe they were already close. He checked the scanner's frequency records. The signal was more than just a location marker. It was sending data: heartbeat, movement, pain levels, fear levels. Reed's hands clenched. They weren't just tracking her. They were studying her. Later, when Kaylee woke up, she saw the scanner. She looked at him, worried. Reed didn't lie. They put something in you, something bad. She touched her neck slowly, as if she had always felt something was wrong. I can take it out, Reed said. But it may hurt. I'll be careful. She looked into his eyes and nodded. He set up a medical pod inside the shelter, old but still functional. He sterilized tools, powered up the surgical arm, and dimmed the lights. Kaylee lay still, silent, brave. He used numbing spray around the area. The scanner guided his tool. The incision was small, but the device was deep, a needle-like chip wrapped around nerve endings. One wrong move, and it could paralyze her. But Reed's hands were steady, careful, focused. After several tense minutes, click. He pulled it out, a black, glassy shard no bigger than a fingernail, but humming, still alive, still sending. He dropped it into a metal case and sealed it, then crushed the signal core with a shock tool. The tracker sparked once and died. Kaylee sat up slowly. Her hand reached to her neck. Gone. She looked at him. He smiled. You're free now, truly free. For the first time, she smiled back, faint but real. That night, Reed looked at the chip again under the lab lens. There was something else etched on it, a mark, a symbol, a circle with a claw inside. He recognized it, a cartel sign, one of the biggest black market rings in the galaxy, known for trafficking rare species, especially young ones, especially those that could be trained or sold or turned into weapons. He checked the database, and there it was. Kaylee's species, rare, extinct in most records, fast learners, highly sensitive to emotion, valuable hunted, treated as tools. Reed sat back in the chair. Whoever had her wouldn't stop, not just because he stole property, but because Kaylee was evidence. A witness, maybe the last of her kind. Suddenly, the ship's radar beeped, a signal, weak but moving, far away, tracking something. Reed narrowed his eyes. Maybe it wasn't just a rescue anymore. Maybe it was time to take the fight back to them. But first, he had to teach Kaylee to run, to hide, to speak, to live, because whatever they did to her, they weren't finished. But neither was he. They came to reclaim. Their property night fell over the desert moon. The stars were quiet. The wind outside the shelter was calm. Inside, Reed worked fast. He had weapons on the table, tools, emergency packs, a small energy shield. Every instinct in him said the same thing. They're coming. Kali sat on the floor, legs crossed, wrapped in her blanket. She watched him silently. Her eyes followed his every move. She was learning, watching. Her silver skin looked stronger now. Her body wasn't trembling anymore. But Reed could see the truth behind her calm face. She was scared. Still. He crouched beside her and showed her a small screen. Look, he said, keeping his voice low. Bad people. Cartel. They hurt you. They want you back. She nodded slowly. Reed tapped the map. They're close, maybe hours away. He pointed to a small safe tunnel under the shelter. If I tell you to run, you run. Don't stop. Kaylee's hand reached toward his and gripped his sleeve, tight as if saying, Don't leave me. He smiled. I won't. The radar flashed. Ship detected 1, then 2, then 3. Reed stepped outside with his binoculars. High in the sky, dark shapes moved through the clouds. No lights, no ID beacons. They were trying to sneak in, but he saw them and he was ready. Back inside, he handed Kaylee a small translator device. Try to speak, he said gently. She put it near her throat. Her lips moved. Static. Then, her voice. Broken. Robotic. But hers. Reed. His heart froze. That was the first time she said his name, and it hit harder than any bullet. He nodded once. I've got you. The first explosion shook the ground. The sky turned orange. Sand blew up in every direction. Reed pulled Kaylee behind cover as the main hatch door burst open. 3 figures stepped through. Not human. Tall. Armored. With sharp breathing masks and glowing weapons. One pointed at Reed. Shoo. Girl, now. Reed raised his blaster. She's not yours. The lead slaver laughed. You think you're a hero? You're just a thief who stole marked cargo. She's a child. She's ours. Without warning, they fired. Reed ducked behind a crate and returned fire. The shelter shook. Kaylee hid behind the table, covering her ears. She wanted to scream, but no sound came out. Reed shouted over the noise. Kaylee! The tunnel! Go! She didn't move. He looked back and saw her eyes. She wasn't hiding. She was angry. One of the slavers moved closer. Kaylee stepped out from behind the table. The slaver laughed. Look at her. What's she going to do? Cry again? She stared at him and screamed, a high, shrill sound, not of pain, but power. The lights flickered. The slaver grabbed his ears, stumbling back. Reed's jaw dropped. What the? Kaylee's scream was more than sound. It was energy. A wave of raw force burst from her, blasting the nearest attacker into the wall. Reed fired again, hitting the other 2 while they were dazed. Silence fell. Dust settled. Only 2 were left standing, Reed and Kaylee. She dropped to her knees, breathing hard. Her voice device sparked and fell off. Reed ran to her. You okay? She nodded weakly. Her lips moved. No sound, but he could read it. I'm not weak anymore. They left the shelter that night. It was no longer safe, but something had changed. Kaylee wasn't just someone who needed saving. She was someone worth fighting beside. Someone who had power. Someone who had a name. And now, she had a voice. He didn't just save her. He gave her back her name. The morning sun rose over a new world, a quiet planet, green skies, tall trees, no slavers, no cages, no fear. Kaylee stood at the edge of a peaceful lake, her bare feet in the grass. The wind touched her face gently. For the first time, she didn't shiver. Reed stood a few steps behind her, watching. She had changed. She was still small, still quiet, but stronger. She walked with her back straight now. No chains. No more hiding behind blankets. She wasn't broken anymore. Reed set down a crate beside her. Your new ID, he said, opening it. No trackers, no marks, just yours. Kaylee looked inside. Clothes, a necklace with a nameplate, a data chip. She picked up the necklace and read it. Kaylee, her name, her real name. Not a number, not cargo. Reed smiled. That's who you are. You don't belong to anyone but yourself. She placed the necklace around her neck and touched it like it was made of gold. Then she turned to him. Her voice was still faint, still damaged, but her lips moved slowly, carefully. I remember, Mother. Reed stepped closer. You do? Kaylee nodded. She hid me, told me not to cry. Said someone good would come, then darkness. She pointed at her heart. I waited. Reed's hands tightened. You waited a long time. Kaylee looked up. Her silver eyes glowed gently in the morning light. But you came, she whispered. He knelt beside her. I didn't save you. You saved yourself. I just opened the cage. She tilted her head. You stayed. He chuckled. Yeah, guess I did. Suddenly she took his hand, firm, not shy, not scared. She looked up at him with a quiet fire in her eyes. I want to help others, like me. Reed raised an eyebrow. That's not easy. I know. He smiled. That's a big mission. Her small fingers squeezed his. You taught me to fight. Now teach me to free. Reed stood, pulling her gently to her feet. You sure you're ready? Kaylee looked back at the lake. The sun. The peace. Then forward, toward the sky. Yes. The camera inside the ship recorded a final message. One for records. For memory. Reed stood beside Kaylee as she spoke into the lens. My name is Kaylee. They put me in a cage. They gave me numbers. They took away my voice. My mother. My name. But I'm not broken. She paused and looked up. A human found me. He gave me water. He gave me warmth. He gave me my name back. She smiled. Now I will give others their names back too. Reed ended the recording and leaned back in his chair. You're a natural. Kaylee grinned. You're old. He blinked. Hey, who taught you sarcasm? She pointed to herself. Fast learner. They took off into the sky, the stars opening before them, not as a rescuer and a rescued, but as partners, as family, as freedom givers. Somewhere in the galaxy, another cage waited to be broken, and now someone was coming.